Welcome back to season 2 of Thoughts About Feelings. I can't believe it, more than one season. Or perhaps you're here for the very first time. It's never too late to talk about thoughts and feelings. All of your thoughts, all of your feelings are mentionable and manageable. In the words of my friend, Mr. Rogers, we're so excited to talk with old friends and new friends about mental health and about so much more. We hope this is a safe space for you. And my name is Mychal Threets.
And I'm Blair Imani. And today, to kick off our season, we are joined by our amazing friend, Tony Weaver Jr.
Podcast so nice we had to do it twice. What a time. I'm excited.
We've got some thoughts about feelings. Think of the places we can go and the people we'll meet, the things that we'll see. What do you think? Are you feeling me? Thoughts about feelings.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to have you to kick off our new season of Thoughts About Feelings. It's going to be so fantastic. I hope you're ready to talk about your thoughts and your feelings to your level of comfort.
I have a lot of both of those. And I share most of them with both of you. So that's actually, it's just a normal afternoon for me.
This season, we want to do things a little bit differently.
Okay.
And I feel like when we have conversations with people, usually it's like, hi, how are you doing? I'm good. Mm-hmm. The way I usually respond to that now is that I'm pregnant because I am. Mm-hmm. But you might not be. So I want to ask you, how are you really?
I'm not pregnant as far as I know. As far as I know.
Stay tuned.
I'm not. I think that right now I'm in a very competitive mood. I think that's how I feel, but not inherently in like competition with other people. I'm in competition with systems. I think that the ways that stories are allowed to be told, the system that allows stories to be told, whether that's in books, whether that's in film, whether that's in TV, I feel like it's fundamentally broken and good stories happen in spite of that system, not because of it. So I feel very competitive with that system right now. I'm like, meet me in the parking lot. I will fight you. That's my general feeling right now.
100% a fight the power type feeling.
Yeah.
I can relate to that at all times.
Always ready to go, huh?
Yes.
Just fisticuffs squared up whenever ready.
100%. You look outside and I'm just, come out here. I want to talk about literacy. I have some questions.
That definitely is a thread that binds us all together.
Yes. And some people you're probably not so competitive with are the library kids.
100%. I love those kids.
Yes, they're the best. We love talking about them. I love that you have experience with library kids. I definitely want to talk soon about your class visits and talking about your book. Yeah. But your book is called Weirdo. Yeah. And you have so many thoughts about weirdos, about being weird. I hope we get to talk about being weird more and more throughout this season. And we like to ask people like a library kid question. And I believe they would ask you in a time where they feel like, can I fit in? Do I fit in? People say, you're so weird. That's so weird in a negative way. They would ask, is being weird a good thing?
I would say, as long as you're being true to yourself and you're not hurting anybody, being weird is always a good thing. Because if you're in an environment where being your truest and most genuine self isn't a positive thing, you're in the wrong environment. And a lot of kids don't have the agency to say, well, I'm just going to go somewhere else. However, I'm going to optimistically believe that in whatever place you find yourself in, whether that's a school, a summer camp, an after-school program, or something like that, you are not as alone as you think you are. But the only way you're going to find that other person is if you stand 10 toes down on who you are. So I'm going to say, as long as you're being true to yourself and you're not causing any harm, being weird is always a good thing.
Very much so. Do you think you were weird when you were a kid? Would you have called yourself weird as a kid? Would you have embraced it as much as you do today?
Listen, they called me weird, okay? I didn't call it to myself. I was cool in my head. I was like, listen, I'm very cool because I like cool things. Holographic Charizard, cool. Dragon Ball Z, cool. Running with your arms behind your back. Me personally, cool. I feel like it's the most aerodynamic way to run.
That's how I ran between my classes every single day at school, and I had a rolly backpack. So I didn't have the back pain. I had more aerodynamic speed, and everybody called me weird. I'm out here like, hey, I'm the first one in class. I get to ask the teacher for extra credit, and she gets to make a deal with me because y'all aren't clued in yet.
You know, I never thought about the aerodynamic benefits of running with your arms behind your back when you have a rolly bag. Like that's scientifically sound.
Thank you.
All of those things were cool to me.
Very cool.
I was told that they were weird. So that moniker was one that was kind of put on me. And when I was younger, I was not deeply accepting of that thing. I was like, no, I don't want to be the weird kid. I think that when I was younger, I wanted to be that guy. And we'll talk a little later about what that guy is or who that guy is. I think there are a lot of people, especially young boys, that want to be that guy. And we spend a lot of our life trying to be that guy. But now as an adult, I'm like, no, I'm just weird and I'm with it. It's cool. I'm trying to help kids come to that moment of acceptance a bit earlier than I did.
That's really important. I always, tell people that the thing that will make you stand out, whether it's, in business or in your friend groups or on social media, is for you to tap into the aspect of yourself that was most made fun of. When I was growing up, I was made fun of for being the fun fact girl because I would always walk around with like those fact books. Or do you remember those like kind of agenda planners that they would have in some schools, and they'd have like, yes. And so I would stand up and read it like it was my job every single day in class. Did anybody ask me to do it? No. Did the teacher kind of not like it? Yeah, probably not. But, I did. And I was like, today is fun fact, and I would read it on Monday. And it really brought me so much joy. I'd also do it on Tuesdays during 3-day weekends. And today I do fun facts for a living.
You make people smarter in seconds. It's true.
It really tracks.
You've always been who you are.
You shared what you kind of were made fun of for when you were growing up. But Mychal, I'd love for you to get in on this weirdo train as well.
Yeah, you know what? I think I think probably people would have thought I would have been made fun of for being the homeschool kid, but I think it was just so unusual when I was a kid and there wasn't social media that being homeschooled wasn't something that we made fun of, especially not other kids. I think more adults were against homeschooling more than kids. Kids were more so just like, you're homeschooled. Lucky. How do I get to be homeschooled? I was that kid who just made a lot of random noises as a kid, like playing video games, playing outside. I would just either just let out a shriek or just sing whatever was out on the top of my mind. And I got made fun of a lot for that. That really hurt. I think I also got made fun of for the way that I eat. I remember distinctly, I ate a muffin at one point, a poppy seed muffin. And they're very, very crumbly if you've ever had a poppy seed muffin. And it just crumbled like all over my shirt while I was eating it. And a lot of people made fun of me for that. So to this day, it's very, very difficult for me to eat food in front of other people because of that. So all those things, but I still will sing randomly. I still eat poppy seed muffins. So even though it hurt a lot as a kid, I've come a long way and been able to embrace my weirdness. And I've learned a lot about that from yourself and also from you to just embrace who you are and embrace your weird.
Something that, like, how do I put it? This is off script, but something that I feel a need to say as the three of us are in the room is that we have this thing where we pass inspiration back and forth amongst each other. Like when I met Mychal for the first time, Mychal was like, yeah, I've seen your stuff. And I'm like, you've seen my stuff. I only make stuff because I saw your stuff. Prior to seeing Mychal's content, I was at a point in my kind of content creator journey where I was kind of going through the motions. I had kind of built this box for myself where I said, okay, here's the stuff that I want to do, but here is what the internet will allow me to do. I am allowed to talk about Naruto. That's what I'm allowed to do. I'm allowed to do those things. And even though I would like to show up as a more genuine version of myself, there's not space for me to do that. No one will allow me to do that. And then I saw Mychal's videos and they were so refreshing because I'm like, he's just being himself. And like, I have an acting degree. I can tell when somebody's faking the funk. Like I was watching, I was like, nah, he just like that. That's not hyperbole.
Organic.
Yeah, he's just like that. And he just gets to turn on the camera and just do that. Lucky.
And speaking of passing inspiration, I remember like this was before my like Instagram virality or whatever. But I remember seeing you on Twitter back when we were like Twitter mutuals. And I remember, so this was back when like the big thing to call somebody was a social justice warrior. Now, despite the fact that I fully embodied social justice warriorship, I felt like a type of way about it because I don't know, it felt like corny, it felt inauthentic. And then I see you on my feed wearing a cape. And you're just wearing that cape every day. And I was like, okay, wait, if this person's out here wearing it on his sleeve and like being this like nerdy, dynamic, cool person, because I feel like for a long time with my social media, and it was so funny, I had a friend who was like, oh yeah, I was trying to, tell somebody like, Blair is so cool in person. She's not as militant as she is online. And like now I think people see more of the full dimension of who I am, which includes the silly gooseness and stuff like that and the whimsy. But at the time, I rarely took pictures where I was smiling. I rarely wore colors. I think I was just trying to figure out like how to be me in a not follow a script of somebody else's expectation of what it meant to be a Black woman on the internet. And I was really afraid to tap into that. And I was like, okay, wait, this person, Tony Weaver Jr., is out here just like 100% being himself at like full volume all the time. I'm going to start to do that a little bit more. And once I started to do that, I started to feel a lot more relaxed because I didn't have to like maintain an appearance. I could just be myself. And it took me a while to get there. But I remember when we finally met up in person at Comic-Con when I was in my big Star Trek era. I feel like I wouldn't have had a Star Trek era if I hadn't seen somebody modeling what it looks like to be loud, themselves, Black, and in a fandom unapologetically. So I thank you.
This warms my heart deeply, especially because the cape that I was wearing at the time was a children's cape. I got it when I was a child.
Really?
When I was like 13. I won it from an amusement park, and that was still the cape that I was wearing. So I'm like an adult with a cape that stops at like the small of my back. And when someone told me it was too small, I was like, I didn't think about the fact that I was an adult now when I put this cape on. I just had it for so long. Now my capes are longer. They're adult size. So I get to be a little bit more substantial with my presence.
Wow. Hey. Well, I'm a big fan of The Incredibles, so I don't think you can have maybe you want to slim your cape back that child size so it doesn't get stuck.
Doesn't get stuck in anything. It's true.
Yeah, it was a very Edna Mode approved cape size previously.
I feel like Edna should be making capes with quick release flaps. Like it should just be, you can wear a cape, and if more than X amount of pressure is exerted on it, it automatically detaches from your body, and it's fine.
Yeah, but I feel like she's like inherently anti-capes and biased against that.
I appreciate you pointing out her bias. Let that be known. Anything that Edna Mode says about capes is colored by her bias. And I think that's really important for people to know.
You have to consider the source, 100%.
And if you're just listening to this, we already talked about Tony's cape, but you can't see. He's wearing his trademark hat with the horns. And I think I saw you for the first time without your hat, and I lost my mind. I almost didn't recognize you at all. I was like, I don't know this person. This is not my friend. What is going on in life?
Who is this guy? What's going on with this guy?
Tony's also wearing an exquisite chain, and I'd like to hear about all the accessories, including these signature glasses that you got on.
It's okay. So for me, what I say is, if I'm not gonna cape it up, I gotta. You gonna know I'm a nerd. You gonna see it. So my hat is a My Hero Academia hat based on the character Mount Lady. So she has horns in her costume, and I have horns on my hat. And part of the reason I like wearing it is because I figuratively and literally stick out. That's the point. I'm just gonna stick out. Hey, over here. I'm very easy to find because I'm at a level of confidence in myself where I'm like, if it's good or if it's bad, it will find me. You don't have to look. I'm right here. Pull up. If you got something positive, I'm here for you. Let's embrace that. If you got something negative, I can take it. Come on over. So the horns kind of I stick out. My necklace right now is a iced out gold Karibo chain. From Karibo, the dual monster from the Yu-Gi-Oh series that protects Yugi from receiving damage. That is the card's effect. You discard it from your hand, you take 0 battle damage that turn. So it's a little protective charm.
This is very similar to the evil eye necklaces and bracelets that I wear. I love that from different fandoms.
It's a protective. The brand King Ice sent it to me, and they did a Yu-Gi-Oh collection, and I'm like, I love this so much. I'm having a great time.
That's fabulous. And your glasses?
So I really like strange glasses frames. Like normally I have somewhere like the top is missing. This one, the sides are missing. And I think a part of it is that someone's gonna be like, he really don't be thinking deeply about this, but I do. I swear, I do. What I like about my glasses is that there's always a certain facet or like vertex of the frame that's missing, so that my point of view is not boxed in. There's always like the ability for me to see outside of the frame or outside of the lines, and that's what I try to do. I try to normalize this idea that the way that I look at myself, the way that I look at other people, the way that I look at the world always has the ability to be free in some context.
That's really beautiful. I love that. I love talking to intentional dressers because I think that's another way that we can express ourselves. But something that you mentioned just now was the confidence that you have within yourself. And I wonder if that's something that you always had, like you when you were growing up, like you looked at everything that you liked as cool even though other people called it weird, and today you embrace being weird. And I wonder if that maybe had to do with the cape that you had from your childhood. I'd love for you to talk about that.
I had to grow into it. And something that I try to model in my storytelling and even like the books that I write is that the journey to self-confidence is a step-by-step thing. Those steps are not always forward, and you never really reach a destination. It's just a journey that you are always on. So for me, when I was younger, I was not confident. To describe it, when I was a kid, I didn't just lack confidence in myself. I lacked confidence in my ability to be a human being. I did not feel like a human being. So I would very deeply observe and spend time looking at my peers and what it meant to like perform humanity. So how do you sit? Where do you rest your hands? How wide is your smile? 1 centimeter too wide and it's weird. 1 centimeter too narrow and it's fake and it's not genuine. When you laugh, what is the exact decibel volume at your laugh? How much do you laugh? How many seconds is a chuckle versus like, oh, this is really funny? How much is too much? I was really keyed in on like, okay, how to be human. And then someone would say something and I'd be like, okay, I get to practice. Ha, 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 ha. All right, what's everybody's reaction? How are they feeling? How are they looking? And I'm seeing like, oh, this person, they made a funny face and then they like immediately turned it off because they didn't want me to notice. But I noticed, okay, I got to take that back to the lab. How to laugh version 1,500. I wasn't confident like at all. I was trying to be what other people were. And frankly, I don't know what the inciting incident or moment was. And I decided I'm just going to be myself. I think I got tired. Like I just got tired. Even right now, the way I dress right now, I dress like this because I'm tired. Like I have a tank top on right now. My arms are out. Everything's like really flowy. And it's because for years I would dress a certain way and I wanted my clothes to be tight so that I could accentuate my muscles because I was trying to perform masculinity in a very specific way. And I did that for a really long time. And I just got tired. It's like, bro, I don't like insecurity takes a lot of energy. Yeah. It takes a lot of energy and effort to be insecure because you have to think through so many things. In some ways, confidence is a path of like least resistance because this is who I am, bro. And I didn't have to pick that or study it. Like this is me. And I'm just going to hold that because that's naturally how I present. That's a long answer. You caught me monologuing.
No, I love that.
That's good. You do a lot of class visits talking about your book at different schools and libraries. You meet a lot of young boys and young girls who lack confidence and maybe see yourself as a role model, just be exactly who they are and find their own confidence.
It's humbling when kids are vulnerable with me in that way. Because a lot of times when I visit schools, so since Weirdo came out in September of last year, I visited over 50 schools across the US. I've been on the road because for me, like I think that's my purpose. It feels deeply important and holy to me to help kids become the people that they're supposed to be. So when I visit these places and they're kind of expressing to me where they're struggling, number one, it feels like a privilege because thank you for sharing that. But also I'm like, okay, we got work to do. How do we build? And one thing that I always tell them is that as soon as you start being yourself, it creates room for other people to be themselves. I think we have like the dichotomy for normal and weird flipped over. I think being normal is weird. Being weird is being normal in the sense that normalcy is a box that we all like collectively as a society have decided to try and force ourselves into. And none of us really like the box, but it's like, I'm in the box because you're in the box. Like, well, I'm in the box because he is in the box. We can have a class of 20
Spider-Man
people.
meme.
Yes. You can have a classroom with 20 kids in it, and all of those kids are trying to behave normal, and they're trying to behave normal because the kid to their right or the kid behind them, they're afraid that kid's going to make fun of them if they're not normal. Whole time, none of them actually want to be normal. No. Who are we actually fitting in this box for? Like, who does this benefit? Certainly not us. Certainly not the individual. So getting them to think about it like that. they're making room for other people. And in turn, those people make room for them. It's like this collective positive feedback effect.
No, I think that's really important. And I think, like, for myself, when you're talking about, you know, the just being yourself is a path of least resistance, I've definitely experienced that, you know, with my own self, with my own journey of like covering my hair and, you know, showing some of my braids and figuring it out. And I find time and time again, the barrier to me doing what I want to do with my body and my hair and all things like this and how I dress is sometimes, well, but everybody's going to react a certain way. Everybody's going to feel a certain way. And it really sucks to kind of be trapped in that box because it's like, man, but I want to do this instead of that. And so I'm taking a big step right now in like just trying to embrace myself and, you know, honor my relationship to God by wearing hijab in the way that best suits me. And I keep reassuring folks when I talk about it. I'm like, don't worry, I'm okay with it. And since I'm me, you should be okay with it too. And because sometimes there's a lot of scrutiny that comes, like, even though being yourself is the path of least resistance, there are so many people who aren't able to be their full selves because of different systems, different laws, different policies, dress codes, and things like that. And so I think that's also a reminder. I always, you know, I try to encourage people that if you can't be yourself at full volume, sometimes it's because you're, you know, you have these things that are internalized that you have to work through, but sometimes it's because of the people around you. Yeah. And it's, you know, like what you talked about right at the beginning, which is that we don't always have the agency to get out of spaces like that, but just know that there is a space that will 100% accept you for the full you, and people will love you for exactly who you are, regardless of, you know, what you might have been told. And it's just a matter of getting to that point. And I always try to tell people, like, at a certain point, you'll have friends who just want to be friends with you because you're you, not because of what you offer, not because of what you contribute to the world, but because you are Mychal, because you are Tony, because I am Blair, and that's all, and that's enough. And when you're not in that place, it can feel so impossible. And so I wonder if you have, you know, for both of you, kind of like any words of hope, because I know that we've all been there, where we were in a situation where maybe we didn't have a lot of friends, or maybe we weren't the most popular, which feels really stressful in general. But how did you kind of stick with it to get to that point, to get to that place?
You know, for me, I think it's always surprising how much we downplay ourselves in our own stories. I think I liked your response to how much you enjoy visiting schools and talking to kids about your books, but just books and literacy in general. And it's something I get to do too. It's my favorite thing in the world to visit schools, to visit libraries, and talk to the kids. I've had so many cool experiences. We're doing one right now, being on this podcast, meeting different people. But I love talking to library kids about themselves and just sharing my library story and my mental health story. I remember I think I was in Michigan, and I was sharing my story about how much I've struggled in life, and just talking, there was a bunch of teens and tweens who are notorious for not asking questions, for not speaking up, even though they should. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing very well. They're not receiving anything. They look half asleep. It's 10 a.m. They probably didn't even know they were supposed to be coming to hear this library person start yapping at them. And I remember afterwards, I was just talking. A couple of them came up and they shook my hand. They're like, "Hey, thanks for telling your story. That must have been really hard. You were stuttering and stammering the whole time. Thanks for trying your best." And I remember one kid at the very end came up and just like very quietly was like, "I didn't want to talk to you in front of everybody, but I've been having such a hard time myself. I was out of school for 2 years because I had to help my mom take care of my sister because she's nonverbal, she has autism, she has all these things going on." And I just told this kid, I was like, "I'm so proud of you. Thanks for letting me into your story." And the kid was like, "Maybe I should write that story. I never thought about it before, but I have a chance to share it, and maybe it'll help somebody like my mom, like my sister." So I think we just need to share more of our stories. Like we all have advice. There's so much unsolicited advice in the world. I know Blair is very familiar with unsolicited advice. But as much as we don't all want to receive advice, I think we can all share our story to show people that they're not alone. I think that's something that I've tried to do, to show people that maybe they can have the confidence and courage to share their story, and hopefully just keep on going day by day.
Hey friends, I've got some exciting news. Reading Rainbow is back with our friend and my co-host, Mychal Threets. In every episode, you'll open a book and Mychal will take you on an adventure through magical stories, fascinating ideas, and voices that inspire us to see the world in brand new ways. But remember, Reading Rainbow isn't just about reading. It's about imagination, connection, and discovery. It's about helping kids and adults see themselves in stories and learn about others too. I'm so excited my daughter will get to grow up with Reading Rainbow just like I did and explore the wonderful world of books. With every episode, you'll laugh, you'll learn, and you'll explore. And the best part, you can watch every new episode of Reading Rainbow free on Kids Co YouTube. So bring your imagination and come join the fun, because when you read, you can go anywhere. Make sure to support Mychal as the library guy becomes the Reading Rainbow guy. Congratulations, Mychal.
I think for me, something that I've learned as a tool or as a mechanism is I think about identity in terms of, how do I put it? I think about identity in terms of being and not scale. And that sounds a little confusing, but let me explain.
Break it down.
So if you have a glass of water, right? You can have a 2-liter like giant container of water, or you can have a glass of water, and they're both water, right? The water does not cease to be water, even when the place that it is in is different in size. So for me, I say I'm water. And there are some spaces that I get put in where I'm a glass of water, or I'm like a syringe of water, or I'm like one of those really small cold medicine size cups of water. And there are other places I get put in where I get to put on my cape and I'm like a 2-liter gallon of water. Or liter, gallon, they gonna make fun of me, it's fine. Where I'm like a 2-liter container of water, or I get to talk to some of my friends where I can be like really full and I'm like an ocean of water. But even in those scenarios where I'm just a little tiny sippy cup, I'm still water. And I've gotten accustomed to feeling full in myself, even in spaces where I'm not allowed to stretch out as much as I would like to. So I wear my cape very often. The nonprofit that I run, Weird Enough Productions, we do a lot of work with fundraising with foundations. Foundations very interesting. Some of them are a random tech CEO that had an exit 15 years ago and now has some money to blow. And when I go meet with him, he's on the beach and he doesn't even have a shirt on while he's talking to me about a 6-figure check. And other times, I have one funder who I'm not going to call out. They're a family foundation. So they consist of family members across generations that all have different beliefs, and they're all always posturing with each other. So in the boardroom, they're all very uptight and strict. And the person that runs their foundation before I walked into the room was like, hey, we saw in one of your previous pitches that you had a cape on. Don't do that here. They're not going to respond well to that. It's like, cool, well, I run an organization called Weird Enough Productions, and I want your money, but you don't like capes. But I still have to honor what we are, what we do, and who we serve. So in that scenario, it's a little hostile in here. I'm like a sippy cup of water, but I'm still water. I think that's a skill that's really helpful to have. It's like, just because I shrink a little bit doesn't mean I'm minimizing myself. It just means I'm being the best, most refreshing sippy cup of water right now.
I love that. It's like code switching, but like in an embodied sense.
Yes.
And I think it really helps people to, understand that like, just because you might have to be that little like, sample size little sippy cup doesn't mean that you don't contain multitudes elsewhere. And like, you're still you. And it's this metaphor that I talk about this, you're ourselves being a flower with many petals. I talked about it in my book, Read This to Get Smarter, about how the way we can look at ourselves, that we're like, a flower, we're not really judging flowers like, oh my gosh, that tulip is so basic, it only has 2 petals. You're like, that's a beautiful flower, typically, unless you have like a real beef, like an Edna Mode style beef against capes, but with flowers.
A bias.
A bias.
A bias.
But I like, maybe you're a hydrangea, maybe you're a sunflower. And then the different aspects of our identity are these petals on this flower. And sometimes those wilt away. Sometimes they come back. So like, I was once wearing hijab, like fully just only showing my face. That was a petal. That petal has now wilted away. And now I've gained a new one of, kind of embracing this kind of like hybrid way of covering my hair and not covering it and just being myself. And I think looking at it that way is that reminder, like, you're still a flower, you're still who you are, you're still water. And I hope that resonates with other people, because it can feel really exhausting, especially when you're being told by the world that like, oh, you're living a lie or you're not embracing your full truth. It's like, look, I'm just out here being me, struggling, doing my best. And so when you talked about the nonprofit Weird Enough Productions, there's a really exciting project that you're working on.
Indeed.
called, should we say it together? 1, 2, 3.
Nerds for Literacy.
Oh.
NFL.
Yes.
NFL season all the
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Please tell us about it. I was so happy when I got my chibi character. I can't wait to post my video. Well, I guess by the time this goes up, it will be posted already. Supporting Nerds for Literacy. But you called me. You said you were going to do something foolish. I got worried.
Mm-hmm.
But your foolish idea was that you wanted to help raise money for literacy, and it sounded like a really sound, wholesome idea. So shout out to you. Tell us about it.
Before you guys, I just want to say that he said the exact same thing when he called me. I am going to do something crazy, something foolish. You have a few minutes? And I was all in. I didn't think anything bad. I was like, it's Tony Weaver Jr., weirdo, nerd. This is going to be great. Tell me more. So
Nerds for Literacy is in part the reason I need to have this hat on, because the stress that is happening, I'm gonna have a whole region of gray hair by the time this campaign is over. Nerds for Literacy is a charity initiative where we're fundraising $100,000 to donate books to kids at underfunded schools and libraries. It kind of arose from this feeling of anger that I had, that competitiveness, right, with the system of how we create stories, but also how we get stories in kids' hands. So over 8,000 schools across the U.S. don't have libraries at all. Of the schools that do have libraries, 35% of them don't have librarians. And we're currently in a place where youth reading levels are the lowest that they've been ever since we've started measuring or looking at them. And I looked at all those numbers and I said, I don't like that. I'm not really happy about that, because stories saved my life. Stories are how I became the person that I am. So when you remove stories from kids, when kids don't have the opportunity to get access to stories, they don't have access to become who they are. I heard LeVar Burton say that stories are windows indoors and also mirrors. So you remove kids from stories, it's like they can't look at themselves, they can't look outside of their situation, and they also can't step into new worlds. And that sounds horrible for a child as they're developing their sense of self and their sense of being. So for me, I wanted to do something to stop that. I wanted to do something to make that better. And that's where I started to feel kind of foolish, because I said, looking at the powers that be, looking at the systems that work, or the systems that we kind of have to operate in, all the time, companies will pop up to an influencer and give influencers ridiculous sums of money just because the influencer feels like doing something. Mr. Beast says, we should build some water wells. And nobody says, are you the person to do that? Are you qualified to do that?
What are you qualified for?
How do we know if you're actually going to be able to do that? He says, I want to do it. And people show up, and in 3 weeks, he can put $40 million together for a really good cause. And I mean, like, he's partnering with other organizations, right? Like, I'm not trying to make it seem like he's just running off doing something crazy. But I said, I think I can pull off something like that at a smaller scale. And I think the part that made it feel foolish to me is that I've never done something like that before. I have never gone to the masses and said, hey, I have this idea. Will you show up for my idea? And I mean, like, at the time of this recording, we are about 3.5, 4 weeks into our campaign period. We've raised $83,000 of the $100,000 that we're attempting to raise. So we're in the last quarter. We're moving towards the finish line. And boy, am I stressful, but I feel like it'll be able to happen.
We're going to do it. And I think it's just so important to continue to raise awareness. And I think a lot of times when people take action, there are very few situations, I would imagine, where somebody's like, I can change the world. I can do this. You know, it's kind of like Elle Woods deciding she can get into Harvard. Like, I love that confidence for her, but that's not everybody. Some people are walking around thinking, well, some people change the world and some people, experience the world changes, and it has to do a lot with how we teach these stories. Like, sometimes when we talk about people like Dr. King, we're not talking about his mental health struggles. We're not talking about how he was ostracized when he was growing up and his character development and all those things like that. We're not talking about how Rosa Parks was, part of this coalition of women who were taking action alongside people like Claudette Colvin. We're really treating it like these people are special and anointed. And instead of thinking that we're all special and anointed to be able to take that change, which I really want to start to shift. And so I think it's important for you to talk about how you had doubts and how you overcame those doubts, and yet you did it anyway. So shout out to you. Shout
out to me when it's done. I'm in it right now. The scene in Hercules when he dives into the River Styx and starts swimming and his essence is draining. That's where I'm at right now. But I feel like it's a really important cause, and seeing the impact from the community, seeing the feedback and the response from the community kind of helps reinvigorate me in that energy.
I'm so proud of you and all the nerds for literacy. I'm so excited that you reached out to myself and to Blair to be a part of this. You talked about the literacy crisis, and this is why it's so necessary. I believe I'm honestly so offended by the literacy crisis.
Yeah.
It's just because I think it's so easy to make people literate, and it's all talking. I talk about library joy and book joy all the time, and you brought up LeVar Burton, one of my heroes, and I think what he did that's so special with PBS and Reading Rainbow is not just that he taught us how to read, he encouraged us to read, and he said, you can read, you can see yourselves in these pages, in these books. I think that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to tell people audiobooks count as reading, manga counts as reading, graphic novels count as reading. That's what Weirdo, when there's not that many graphic novels by people of color. I mean, you have Jason Reynolds, you have Jerry Craft, you have Claribel Ortega, and so many more people writing their stories. But what you're doing is you're giving people access, and you're filling these school libraries, you're filling these homes up with books, and access is the biggest thing. So thank you for doing that.
My mom is a public educator. She's at the district level now. And something that I've caught on to is that it's not just making sure that there are resources. It's that accessibility to those resources. And the way that we teach reading in the United States is one in which our literacy systems are far more concerned about kids reading the things that they want them to read rather than kids knowing how to read at all. Instead of saying, once you develop the foundational skill of literacy, I trust you to use your agency to go and find things that appeal to you and find things that are important for you to know. Instead, they say, in order for you to be considered learned, there is a specific canon that I expect you to understand. And if you can engage with that canon, if you don't like it, if it's not appealing to you, then you're not intellectual. You're not a reader. And you should just accept that you're not a reader and go prepare to learn a trade or something like that. But for us intellectual people, we understand the canon. We understand these things that are very important, even if they're not super relevant to everyday life.
And that's called curriculum alienation. And it disproportionately impacts students of color, students who are learning English as a second language, students from multicultural backgrounds, lower income students. It actually only benefits a very small amount of students, because even students at higher income schools that are more resourced are still experiencing curriculum alienation. It's almost like it's not the students, it's sometimes the curriculum not being adaptable enough.
Well, I mean, if you look at the history of U.S. reading levels, a little controversial here.
Let's go.
There was a point in time where majority of people in the United States, regardless of age, were able to read efficiently. Those rates started to go down when schools had to be integrated. When school integration happened, suddenly, when we were kind of tasked with making sure everyone in the public education system knew how to read, suddenly the quality of that and the way that we thought about it shifted. People started to leverage that as a power to identify how they could hold specific groups of people back by not giving them skills that they would need in order to be successful. Since that happened, U.S. literacy rates for kids have not been especially high. I think even if we look back 15, 20 years ago, 2/3 of kids still weren't reading on grade level. So if over the course of 50 years, the kids have changed, the teachers have changed, the schools have changed, but the books that we pick have not changed, I think that says something about what needs to move. I'm no scientist, but I do have a hypothesis. We're going to see how that goes.
It's so important. I just want to put a fine point on that for people, because sometimes when they hear that it was better when schools were segregated, then school segregation was better.
No, not the
break
case.
so quickly, please.
Case.
Emergency break immediately. What it means is that people who were intent on separating people and segregating people had to find different, newer, cleverer ways to conceal their desire to separate and segregate people. And so they started to create things like alienation, curriculum alienation, like the gendered gap for school. So a lot of times the ways that parents will try to overcome that is to separate students by gender. But what you tend to see is still at the girls' schools, you see, girls-focused schools still not emphasizing math or STEM because it still has sexism baked in. So unless we start to heal these systems and start to heal these problems that resulted in segregation in the first place and the transformation of school segregation into the integrated schools, then we're not going to see any changes. And that first step is access. How can people get involved with Nerds for Literacy?
So if you go to nerdsforliteracy.com. There's information about our campaign, what we're doing. And once the traditional fundraising part of the campaign is over, we're going to be rolling out a lot of different volunteer opportunities and ways that people can participate. I believe in the power of systems. I think that even though we exist under a lot of systems that are flawed, I think systems in general can be good things. And when I look at the nerd community, when I look at fandom has impacted the lives of millions of people, when I look at people like you all that are able to create the positive impact that you create, in part due to the stories that you were able to get access to, I think that there is a possibility for us to build a new system. And that's what Nerds for Literacy is intended to be. A system that's rooted in intellectual curiosity, it's rooted in personal agency, and it's also rooted in openness and acceptance of different types of stories and how intelligence can look. And I want to build that into something that can impact kids nationwide. We're starting with that $100,000 that we're raising to go on this nationwide tour and put books into the hands of kids. But I think it is completely possible for it to grow into something that when we look back at it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or when we look 5 or 10 years into the future, Nerds for Literacy is something that can exist in the form of something like a junior achievement or something like even like the Girl Scouts. Can you imagine like a Girl Scouts but for reading?
I see it. I already got the
Absolutely.
badges locked in. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I think, when we think about people like Marley Dias, who created 1,000 Black Girl Books and who's now going on to do incredible stuff, and she did that as a teenager, and how much it did shift demographics in books. Of course, we have a long way to go, but we can all make an impact. And sometimes you just have to identify something that makes you lose sleep, unless that's insomnia, in which case that's mental health. But sometimes it can also be related to the things that we can find that we can take action about in the world. So that's the more metaphorical stuff I'm talking about, not meaning to be ableist out here, but trying to figure out those things that really grind our gears or really upset us that you can't just smooth over and ignore, and then marry that up with something that you're already passionate about, that you're already talented with. So you're already passionate about uniting people, bringing people together across fandoms, across, the nerd like universe, and then motivating those folks to take an action. And we can all do that in our different ways. And so I want to encourage folks to do that.
Thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Thoughts About Feelings with myself, Blair, Imani, and Tony Weaver Jr. Embrace your weirdo, support Nerds for Literacy, always, and I have some book recommendations for us. The first is Tony's book, Weirdo, a great graphic novel. But we also have Embrace Your Weird, Face Your Fears, and Unleash Creativity by Felicia Day. And we also have Little Weirds by Jenny Slate.
Make sure you head over to nerdsforliteracy.com to support this amazing movement. Make sure to support Tony Weaver Jr. If you want more library joy in your life, which you should, make sure to follow my friend Mychal Threets. And if you'd like to get smarter in seconds, you can head over to my page at Blair Imani. We hope you subscribe. We hope you come back for every single episode of Thoughts About Feelings. And hopefully we'll see you again. And until then, toodaloo!
We've got some thoughts about feelings. Think of the places we can go and the people we'll meet, the things that we'll see. What do you think? Are you feeling me? Thoughts about feelings. All the ideas we can share with the fabulous friends and Mychal and Blair. We'll think about our feelings everywhere with thoughts about feelings. Thoughts about feelings.